Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here with a video on if old school RuneScape is turning into RS3, a question that I'm sure plenty of people will be asking now that Next has been released. It's something that I've seen in my clan chat, Smallexplamp, and I've seen over on Twitch as well, and I have a pretty strong opinion that I feel passionately about and I would like to share with you guys today. So let's go ahead, kill a little bit of Next, and talk about what I'm thinking. So it's a pretty loaded question in terms of if old school RuneScape is turning into RS3. To an extent, of course it is. I mean, there are a lot of things that are fundamentally placed into this game and into the lore of this game that will lead you down a line to which things from RS3 will be added to old school RuneScape, and personally, I don't think that's inherently bad. I think that that's a good thing, because if they scrapped everything that happened in RS3, that would be admitting that everything that happened in RS3 was a failure and should not be included in old school RuneScape. Whenever old school RuneScape was at its stage in the game in 2007, there was a roadmap for plenty of things to be added beyond that. To just go ahead and scrap all of that seems like quite a waste, and I personally don't think that everything that came after this point in the game was bad, and I don't think a lot of people do. And so that's where we have to start. By understanding that, we can go ahead and progress. You have to accept that just because you might not have liked RS3, just because you might have quit around the time of 2008 to 2013, whatever it may be, just because you quit then doesn't mean that everything that happened in that game is bad. And I feel like a lot of people cannot disassociate what they hated about RS3 and what they actually enjoyed and liked about RS3. And a lot of people just clump it all together and say it's all bad and throw the baby out with the bathwater, per se. And I think that that is a falsehood. There are plenty of things about RS3 that were beneficial to the game and enjoyable in terms of content. So I can't go ahead and go down that route. In my talks with people in the community, it seems like whenever RS3 was encroaching on a newer and, I guess in Jagex's mind, better game at the time, as it kept on moving, we slowly started to lose that grasp of what used to be. And personally, I don't think that's whenever a new boss comes out. I don't think it's because of the small little content updates that happen in game. Because content updates and new bosses and new skilling methods and new ways to play the game are important, and a lot of people won't like to admit that because this is old school RuneScape and it should stay old school. But you still need updates, you still need things that progress and allow people to continue to play and have something to look forward to and have new moments and new memories that they can formulate with other people. You need that, because without that, if this game still wasn't updated, if you guys don't know, back in the day, Jagex released RuneScape Classic that was a classic version of old school RuneScape in its early stages, and they didn't update it. They might have done bug fixes here and there, but they basically let RuneScape Classic just sit and no one played it. Over time, they had to just get rid of it because people didn't like it. Now, of course, RuneScape Classic and old school RuneScape are from different eras, but the same inherent problem exists. If you do not have updates in a game, if you do not have incentives to keep people going beyond just the baseline, they will get bored after a while. So it is important to have new updates and new things that they can go do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Whenever RS3 happened, and that's a slow, gradual process, but as we approached RS3, there were plenty of updates and plenty of new content changes that people enjoyed and that people liked. However, personally, for me and for many others I've talked to and had these discussions with, there are a lot of just quintessential things that change in the game that really disassociated RS3 from the old school RuneScape predecessor that was. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about what I think really distinguishes RS3 as being different from the old school RuneScape version, and why a lot of people really were frustrated when RuneScape evolved into the RS3 stages. So one of the first things that I feel like really put people off from the evolution into RS3 is, of course, the evolution of combat. So whenever combat was changed and basically you were given a status bar that you had to go ahead and click a bunch of different buttons to perform different attack animations and different actions that would do different things, it was so different from what old school RuneScape was, and that was something that people definitely weren't a fan of. I mean, whenever you look at old school RuneScape and RuneScape in general before that time, people like the simplicity. They like how easy it is to play the game and how relaxing it is. They don't want something where they have to constantly be worried about which button to press in certain orders to get the max DPS and kill certain, if they wanted that, there are plenty of games that offered that, so Jagex should have known to stay within their own lane, but oftentimes companies and people, you know, we see other people doing certain things and people enjoying that, so we're like, maybe we should change our content to, you know, appease those people as well. But you can't appease everyone. That's the problem. You can't appeal to everyone. So you have to know your lane and stick to it. And Jagex did not. And that's something that quite a lot of people really look back on not fondly at all. And personally, I'm the same way. That was really, really what sent me over the edge. In addition to that, being forced to move on towards HD rather than having old graphics is also something that most people didn't like, and myself included. Because realistically, again, RuneScape was something that at the time was so far behind the curve in terms of graphics and in terms of combat system that you have to understand that the people that still play your game, they like it because of that. It's unique, it's special. You don't have to make your game what every other game is at that time, and Jagex tried to do that as well to, I guess, keep up with the Joneses. You know, you see your neighbors doing something, you gotta do it too. But you also have to know your audience, and that was something that they didn't really understand, which is why we ran into the situation we did with RS3 and why old school RuneScape was necessary. So fundamental aspects of the game were changing, not some update of a new boss, you know, not some skilling update that you can get a little bit more XP or do it in a different method. It was fundamental, crucial aspects to the game that made it feel no longer like it used to be. In addition to that, you had microtransactions where you could buy tons of different ways of skilling and teleporting and gaining XP on your account and getting all these different items. There was just so many different ways to pay to get ahead in the game, and so many different ways to pay to make yourself stand out in game and to do special animations and all of this. So just how people operated in game, what you would see people doing would be so different and so strange. And in addition to that, you knew that behind the scenes there were people paying to just level up their account, which is never really something you like to see. So not only are people paying to level up and paying for these different things, but then you look around the game and all these wacky animations are going on because someone paid $3 to Jagex. And while I understand, you know, they want to make a buck, at the same time, it doesn't look anything like the game I used to play. There's some guy just banging his head against a tree to get logs. So it's very strange and, you know, not something, again, I'm used to, nor do I enjoy. And then another one that I thought was very big for me, and I've also heard it from other people, is that the amount of dailies and weeklies and monthlies that you had to do in RuneScape was just a lot. It was far too much. And you didn't have to do them. To say that you have to do anything in game is silly. You can do whatever you want. But they would make these things so efficient that you almost felt compelled that every day you had to log in and siphon from the random rune stones that you could put down, or you have to go kill your monthly troll boss, or, I mean, you have to go get your weekly penguins, and you gotta do all these different things. And it's just another way for Jagex to, at least back in the day, you know, tie that rope to your foot and just keep you stuck in the loop of RuneScape. And that was not something I enjoyed either. I like to be able to hop on the game and do what I want to do, not what I'm being forced to do because it's the meta. And obviously you can go down your own path. That's why I do like Iron Man nowadays on old school RuneScape, because on an Iron Man you don't feel obliged to keep up with what everyone else is doing. You can just go have yourself a grand old time, and that's a beautiful thing. Also something we didn't have in RS3. We didn't have an account where you could go and just be yourself and not really worry about any of that. In old school RuneScape you do have that option. And so with that said, with the examples that I've provided, essentially I feel like those are a lot of fundamental game changers for how you play and perceive the game. They are different ways of playing the game in terms of the combat system, a different way to perceive the game in terms of HD. I know that there's an HD feature on RuneLite now, but it's very subtle and you can choose to turn it off. Back in the day, that wasn't the case. A lot of these things you couldn't choose. With the graphics, with the evolution of combat, with the microtransactions, everyone around you was doing them. I mean, you can choose not to, but you'll notice it. In addition to that, the dailies, you almost felt compelled. And so a lot of these things, you basically felt forced into these situations that you didn't like. And luckily, on old school RuneScape, we have the ability to vote. And so anything that the masses do not like will not happen. And that's a great thing going forward for this game. we have a say in terms of what content comes into it. I mean, we're 8 or 9 years into it and we haven't even seen a new skill yet. Personally, I wouldn't mind a new skill, but of course, everyone has their own opinion on that. I'm sure they're all, very vocal about it too. But at the end of the day, whatever sort of content changes that come along the way, I don't think that those are the reasons that people didn't play RS3. I don't think that means we're turning into RS3, because really what made RS3 was the evolution of combat, was the forced HD, was the microtransactions, just all these things kind of bubbling to the surface, and maybe you could deal with one of them, but the combination of the 3 or the 4 is what really made it overbearing. So whenever I talk to people about what they didn't like about RS3 and what really did it in for them, is all of those types of things I just mentioned, not some new boss that was added or a new skilling method or some random small method that was added. That's always fun and enjoyable and interesting to get a new take on the game and a new perspective. So in my opinion, is old school RuneScape turning into RS3? No. Is there going to be small updates that happen in this game that are similar to RS3? Of course, because there are fundamentally good components of RS3 that I do think old school RuneScape should take. I mean, a lot of the things that RS3 did wasn't anything revolutionary. Some of it's baked into the lore, some of it's just baked into the idea of how a game progresses. You're going to need new best in slot items at some point just to keep people, kind of chasing a little something, dangle the carrot in front of them and, give them a little bit to work for. And that's what we all want. That's why we play a game as grindy and as painstaking as old school RuneScape could be, because we like that. We like the grind and we're about that life. So to have something else to do isn't that bad. Jagex has done a really good job at balancing this on old school RuneScape, and personally, while some people might try to, throw out there that old school RuneScape's turning into RS3 and now, the game's not what it used to be because there's one new boss, like, I simply just don't agree with it. And personally, I don't think I'll ever agree with that sentiment. I think that for the most part, Jagex has our best interest in mind and will listen to us with essentially every worry that we have in old school RuneScape. So, in my opinion, I don't see us encroaching on RS3 at all. And personally, I was happy with the next update. I'm looking forward to more updates in the future. Slow dripping them, of course. I don't want too much at once, like in RS3 when Next came out and it dropped all 3 different types of best in slot armors. That's a bit much, but for the most part, I think Jagex is doing a great job, and I'm happy with old school RuneScape as is right now. So that's my opinion on it if old school RuneScape is turning into RS3. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Anything you'd like to let me know on the subject or others, would love to hear it down below in a comment. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.